Let's go to Judges chapter 10. So chapter 10, verse 17. And we're going to start here. Actually, Jephthah is, we first start talking about him in Judges 11, verse 1. But I want to go back 2 verses here. In fact, we'll go back 3 verses. We'll look at, chapter 10, verse 16 through 18 we're going to look at. Because 16 is really important. You saw what they went through last week. The children of Israel kept sinning. And every time it's like the judges come, God delivers them. The judge, dies or passes off the scene, and then they go back into their sin and the worship of false gods. And then so God has to sell them out again, and then they cry out for deliverance, and it goes over and over and over, right?
Cycle.
And it's a cycle, right? So, and one key verse through Judges is every man did what was right in his own eyes. See, a lot of times we think things are right. We do this in the Christian church. We think because we think it's right that it's right. But it's not necessarily right. It's not necessarily according to the Bible. And it's not according to God's morality and God's revelation, right? And that's kind of a reminder here as we go into Judges. But verse 16 talks about Israel. It says, and they put away the strange gods from among them and served the Lord, and his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel. That's a good thing, right? They put away those strange gods. So then, the next thing that happens, they put away these strange gods, but then the children of Ammon were gathered together and encamped in Gilead, and the children of Israel assembled themselves together and encamped in Mizpeh. And the people and princes of Gilead said one to another, what man is he that will begin to fight against the children of Ammon? He shall be head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. They're looking for a leader.
Yeah.
They don't have a leader. They got an army, but they don't have a leader. And they've repented from the worship of these false gods. But here's the children of Ammon gathered against them. So they're looking for someone to lead them. And they said, whoever it will be the head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. So now we're introduced to Jephthah. In chapter 11, verse 1, now Jephthah, the Gileadite, was a mighty man of valor. That's really a good thing for God's word to say about you. That you're a mighty man of valor. I just hope some of us are going to hear that when we get up to heaven. You mighty man of valor. And he was the son of a harlot. Well, there's one strike against him, right? He was a son of a harlot. Well, what seems to have happened was he was younger than a lot of his brothers, and looks like his father just went out and is in his older age and slept with a harlot. He was a son of a harlot. Gilead begat Jephthah, and Gilead's wife bare him sons. So now it's talking about the other sons, okay? So Gilead had Jephthah, but his wife's true wife bare him other sons, and his wife's sons grew up, and they thrust out Jephthah. And said unto him, thou shalt not inherit in our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Now, if you think that brothers growing up have animosity and conflicts with each other, just try being of a different woman. They're not having the same mother. And what they did when they grew up, they realized, hey, this guy don't belong in this family. Now, he did belong because they had the same father, but they treated this guy like scum. Did this guy have anything to do with who his mother was?
No.
And I think that's unfair. You should not hold against someone, whether it's their talents, ability, whatever they have. You got to be careful because you can offend somebody very easy, and you should not blame people for who they are and what they are and where they've been. Right? Encourage them. But they said, the brothers unanimously, and it's not only the brothers, we'll see in a minute, it was all of the town. All of the elders of the town said, thou shalt not inherit in our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. And Jephthah fled from his brethren and dwelt in the land of Tob. And there were gathered vain men to Jephthah and went out with him. Now we just stopped through reading in verse 1 that he was a mighty man of valor. And you can see that he attracted, it says there were gathered vain men to Jephthah, and they went out with him. These men were gathered to him because of his leadership. Because he was a man's man. If someone was going to be able to be the leader, if someone was going to be able to lead them into military success, this was the guy. But the whole town cast him out. It said, you're not going to have any inheritance with us. So it came to pass in the process of time, the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. Well, these are the same guys that cast him out. Right. So they said to Jephthah, come and be our captain, that we might fight with the children of Ammon. Why not they go to him? Because they know he's tough. I mean, this guy is downright. Remember when they used to make those Arnold Schwarzenegger movies? He was tough. And this guy was tough. And Jephthah said unto the elders of Gilead, did not you hate me? Ye hate me? You expelled me out of my father's house? And who's he talking to? The elders came to Jephthah. It says here in verse 5, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah. So it's not his brothers he's talking about, it's the elders, all the elders. And he said, you expelled me out of the father's house. So the brothers must have went to the elders and said, we don't want him to be associated with our family. Why are you come to me now when you're in distress? Have you ever had a relationship go wrong, and then it's almost like you thought, I don't need them, and then there comes a time when they're the ones you need, and you go crawling back with your tail between their legs, because you need them.
John, can you fix this? Yep.
And these guys, they need him because it's a crisis right now. And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, therefore we turn again to thee now, that thou mayest go with us, fight against the children of Ammon, be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead. And Jephthah said unto the elders of Gilead, if you bring me home again to fight against the children of Ammon, and the Lord deliver them before me, shall I be your head? In other words, shall I be your captain? Shall I be your leader? That they didn't have a king in those days, but should I be the head? And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, the Lord be witness between us if we do not so according to thy words. So what they're saying is, yes, if you come, lead us into the military campaign, and the Lord blesses and overturns the threat and overturns them, gives us the victory, you will be the head over the whole people. So then Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and captain over them. And Jephthah uttered all his words before the Lord in Mizpeh. And Jephthah sent messengers unto the king of the children of Ammon, saying, what hast thou to do with me, that thou art come against me to fight in my land? So he doesn't go out to battle first. He's going to try some negotiation, some diplomacy, right? And so he asks the children of Ammon, he says, why are you coming against my land, or our land? And the king of the children, verse 13, the king of the children of Ammon answered unto the messengers of Jephthah, because Israel took away my land when they came up out of Egypt from Arnon even unto Jabbok and unto Jordan. Now therefore restore those lands against peacefully. And this is prophetic. Because if you look at the whole crisis, the whole situation in Israel, between the Israel and the Arabs and the Muslims, you find out that this whole thing about the land, it's almost identical. And I say I believe it's somewhat prophetic. And Jephthah sent messengers again to the king of the children of Ammon, and said unto him, Thus saith Jephthah, Israel took not away the land of Moab, nor the land of the children of Ammon. But when Israel came, now listen, because this is the argument today. The land never belonged to them, right? And that's what Jephthah is going to say. He said, this land never even was yours. This was ours. He said, because when Israel came up from Egypt and walked through the wilderness unto the Red Sea and came to Kadesh, Israel sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, Let me, I pray thee, pass through thy land. But the king of Edom would not hearken thereto, and in like manner they sent to the king of Moab. But he would not consent, and Israel abode in Kadesh. Then they went, they had to go around the outside. They had to go the long way. Right. Around in both cases. Now, who was Moab and Edom? Those were the sons of Lot. Remember, he had sex with his daughters. And they came by the east side of the land of Moab and pitched on the other side of Arnon, but came not within the border of Moab, for Arnon was the border of Moab. So they weren't trying to start any trouble. All they were trying to get was to the land God was going to give them to promise, and they didn't want to fight. And so they went around. This is in Moses' day. And Israel sent messengers unto Sihon, the king of the Amorites, the king of Heshbon. And Israel said unto him, Let us pass, we pray thee, through thy land in my place. Now this is history. This is not happening right now, but he's recalling how they got the land. So Sihon trusted not Israel to pass through his coast. But Sihon gathered all his people together and pitched in Jahaz and fought against Israel. So who's the one that started the war? Sihon started the war, not Israel. And the Lord God of Israel delivered Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they smote them. So Israel possessed all the land of the Amorites, the inhabitants of that country. So there's where the land first came into their possession. It was by conquest. Well, that land over there that Israel has, that which they've gained, came by conquest. And you know what? They didn't start the war. They were attacked. And they gained the land. Well, now they're saying, give us our land back. And Israel's response is, we've been in this land for 3,000 years. Yeah. You have no claim to the... Of course, everyone wants to deny that Israel... They want to say that Israel didn't even exist until 1948. And that's how long they've been there in the land. But we have the Bible. And the Bible, and archaeology proves these stories are true. And we know, according to what's written here, that it's been 3,000 years they've occupied that land. Now, there was a time where, in Jesus' day, the temple was destroyed and the Israelites were scattered and the land kind of went up for grabs. The Muslims had it, then Rome had it, and then the Holy Roman Empire, and then the Muslims had it again. And then it wasn't until World War I where Britain took it over from the Turks. And then they gave it to Israel. And they possessed all the coast of the Amorites, from Arnon even unto Jabbok, and from the wilderness even unto Jordan. So now the Lord God of Israel has dispossessed the Amorites from before his people Israel, and shouldest thou possess it? In other words, our God gave us the victory. We overcame the Amorites. We gained all their land. Should we just hand it over to you so you can possess it? This was not your land, and we didn't take it from you. And then this next verse, I love it. He says, will not thou possess Chemosh, thy God giveth thee to possess? Now, Chemosh was the main god of the Moabites. And there's somehow there's a link here with Ammon in the main god of the Moabites, Chemosh, but they worship Chemosh, and Israel worships the true God, right? And he's saying the true God gave us this. Shouldn't you inherit what your God, the one you worship, is going to give you or will give you? And he kind of sticks his finger in their face, right? It's like, don't come and try to take our land that our God gave us. When you're worshiping a false God, you get what you get, right? So whosoever the Lord our God shall drive out from before us, them will we possess. And this is Israel's attitude today. Like I said, this chapter is all prophetic. And it's the same, the whole thing is the same argument. And now art thou anything better than Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever strive against Israel, or did he ever fight against them? Now this Balak, if you can remember, you remember the Balaam, the prophet who had the mule talk to him? He was disobedient. You remember that? Well, Balak was the one who brought Balaam into the picture. But he would never go up against Israel to war against them. And that's what he's saying. He said, even Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, he never strove against Israel, not about this land. He knew this land wasn't his. If he thought the land was his, then there would have been a war. Then there would have been strife. Right? But there was none. Historically, there wasn't any. And then he brings up in verse 26, he said, while Israel dwelt in Heshbon and her towns, and in Aror and her towns, and in all the cities that be along by the coasts of Arnon, 300 years, why therefore did you not recover them within the time? In other words, you're saying that this once was your land. You had 300 years to go get it, and you did nothing. Why didn't you go get it? And now that we went and got it, now you want it? He said it wasn't it's not your land. Wherefore I have not sinned against thee, but thou doest me wrong to war against me. The Lord, the judge, be judged this day between the children of Israel and the children of Ammon. Well, you can tell who's going to win, right? He called God into account. You know, when you call God on the picture, you better be in the right. Right? Well, he was in the right. And this man is not only tough. This man is not only a military leader. He also is a man of faith. Okay. And you can tell by what we read here that he attributes everything to God. Just like he said, it's our God that gave us this. Shouldn't you get what your God does? And he's always reflecting upon God. He says, I'm not going to give in to you here, which is what Israel does today. They don't give in. So howbeit the king of children of Ammon hearkened not to the words of Jephthah, which he sent him, then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. So it's not in his power. Now he's a mighty man of valor. He's mighty in his own strength, and he's got military. He's got a whole company of men that followed him. And then this other group, which he was thrown out of, now they wanted to make him the captain and the head over all of them. So he's got all these people behind him. But see, that's not enough. We learned that from Gideon. When Gideon had 10,000 men, and then it went all the way down, got them all the way down to 300, remember? Mm-hmm. Well, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. The Spirit of the Lord doesn't come upon somebody that God hasn't chosen, right? And he passed over Gilead, and Manasseh passed over Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed over unto the children of Ammon. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord, and said, if thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be whatsoever comes forth of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the children of Ammon shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. And just a point here, you should never make a vow to God that you have no intention of keeping. Right. You know, sometimes we have this, we've sinned and we have this guilt. And so it makes us feel better in our prayer to say, God, I will never do this again. God, I vow this. If you'll forgive me this time, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then you forget about it. Well, you shouldn't be like that. When you make a vow, you don't have to make a vow. A vow is volunteer. You volunteer to make that vow. You should keep it up.
Right.
Because remember, Jesus said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And you're supposed to do what you say you're going to do. Anyway, he says, when I return, whatever comes out of my house, that's what's going to be offered as a burnt offering. So Jephthah passed over verse 32, Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them. The Lord delivered them into his hands, and he smote them from Aroer till thou come to Minnith, even 20 cities, and unto the plain of the vineyards with a great slaughter. Thus the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. So did God come through? Sure he did. And you can see Jephthah, the mighty man of valor, who was filled with the Spirit of the Lord, came upon him for this battle. It was all successful. And then Jephthah came to Mizpah unto his house. Now remember the vow. And behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances. And you know what she was doing? Remember Miriam praising the Lord with a tambourine? That's what she was. She was praising the Lord. And she came out, she's singing to the Lord. She comes out. Obviously, the girl loves her father. Obviously, this father, who the rest of them didn't want, who was the son of the harlot, they cast him away. This was a good father. This was a godly man. He taught his daughter. She's like a woman of faith. I'm surprised she's not there. But watch her attitude. She's the one that comes out of the house, and she was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. And that's kind of just rehearsing. This was his only child, right? So it came to pass when he saw her, he rent his clothes and said, Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low. Thou art one of them that troubleth me. For I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back. You see why I say? You don't make a vow you can't keep. Don't make a vow to a fellow brother that you can't keep. But certainly don't vow to God. You make yourself out to be a fool is what you do. And I didn't call you a fool. I'm saying if you do it, you made yourself to be a fool. And she said unto him, My father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto the Lord, do to me according to that which has proceeded out of thy mouth. For as much as the Lord has taken vengeance for thee of thine enemies, even of the children of Ammon. This woman, this daughter, she's really faithful to God. She basically says, okay, well, I know you didn't expect me to be the one, but you swore that I would be made a burnt offering. And you go ahead and do it because God was faithful and delivered the people from Ammon. Now the question is he going to offer up his daughter on an altar? Remember Abraham offered up Isaac? Yep. Is this Jephthah, is he going to offer up his only daughter? Well, let's see. That was the vow. And she said to her father, Let this thing be done for me. Let me alone for 2 months, that I may go up and down upon the mountains and bewail my virginity and my fellows. In other words, let me get all my girlfriends together, and we're going to go up to the mountain for 2 months, and we're just going to mourn for the fact that I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have a child. I'm never going to have any, offspring. And in Israel, it was very sad time when a woman did not conceive. It was very important. And they all had the desire that they may be in the line of the Messiah. And so I think that's part of it. But she said, let us go for 2 months. Let me and my girlfriends go for 2 months up the mountain. We'll bewail my virginity. And he said, Go. And he sent her away for 2 months. She went with her companions and bewailed her virginity up the mountain. And it came to pass, at the end of 2 months that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow, which he had vowed. And she knew no man, and it was a custom in Israel that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gilead 4 days in a year. In other words, once a year they would come and lament this daughter of Jephthah, who was so faithful. She stood up, she said, go ahead and do what you swore to God. Now, and it says that he did. Now, the vow was he was going to offer up a burnt offering, right? So if you look at most conservative, and this is surprising, but most conservative Bible commentators will say, yes, he offered her up, because it says that, doesn't it? He says, the father who did with her according, that's in verse 39, according to his vow, which he had vowed. That would imply that he offered her up as a burnt offering. However, I don't agree with the masses of these, even though they're conservative. Thank God we've got some conservative ones out there. But you got to dig a little deeper, I think. You know, some things on the surface make God look bad. Does God really want him to burn his daughter and offer him like the god Molech? Like they used to offer up their babies to Molech and living sacrifice. No, God says in the law, he says, you don't offer up your child, right? It was against the law of Moses to offer up your child. It doesn't make sense. Did he allow Abraham to go through with offering up Isaac? Even there, which was so vitally important, God had a substitute, right? The key, I think the solution is, if people would only know about in Leviticus, it talks about, you remember, it says in the Bible, all the firstborn belong to the Lord. And that goes back to, when Egypt, the whole plague about the firstborn, all the firstborn in the household belong to the Lord and are supposed to be dedicated to his service. However, the custom was, God gave the ability for them to bring money and to pay the price to redeem their firstborn. All Jephthah had to do is pay the money at the tabernacle, which was in the law, and that would set her free of her obligation. But he went even further here, because it says that for year after year after year, all the women came out and lamented for four days. Now, if you look in Israeli history, they keep the Feast of Purim, they keep the Sabbath, they keep the Passover, right? They keep all these. But do they keep this mourning year after year after? No, they don't do it. And it doesn't seem like there's anything recorded other than here that they did this thing. But it says in the Bible that they did this year after year after year. And here's what I think. I think that she was dedicated to the service of God. According to the vow, she would never marry. She would be like a spiritual, not a priestess, but a handmaid to the Lord.
The wannabe nun.
Like a nun. And she would remain a virgin. And every year, as long as she was alive, this is what I think, as long as she was alive, the girls came and bewailed with her the sadness of her loss of the virginity, not the loss of it, that she couldn't lose her virginity for 4 days, and then next year they'd come again. But I believe that she lived a nice long life. But here's the thing, Jephthah is the one who vowed, right? Every man wanted to have an issue. Every man wanted genealogy. He wanted sons and daughters, right? And even today, most men want to be fathers. Now, some of them don't want to take the responsibility afterwards. But Jephthah had one child. And because of what he said on his mouth, he completely cut off his line. Because he only had one child. She couldn't get married. She couldn't have children because of the vow. And so his line was completely cut off. And yet, this was a great man of faith. I know he's a great man of faith because it says so in Hebrews. That's why we're looking at him. Because he's one of the great ones. And there's more about Jephthah, but we're not going to get into it. The thing I want to also bring out is that, remember, what was the significance of the threshold? Remember that? The threshold, the blood was put, and it represented the covenant. Remember that God would protect the house? The threshold was right in front of the door, and the vow was whatever came out of the house. So she came out of the house. She stepped over the threshold, and that was that. That was that. And I think it has something to do with that threshold. And maybe that's why God preserved her life, because He's the protector. She actually came out of the house, which means she walked through the door across the threshold.